Psychological support to my students in my campus. Oh, you paid somebody else's ice cream. That's what I've got as a live message. This is so lovely. We just wait for 1 more minute. We still have people joining. We've started going live. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. This is a session by Amwizer, which is knowledge for experience. It was actually conceptualized for young adults, where industry experts speak to young adults, share their knowledge, inspire and motivate them. The young adults are overwhelmed by peer pressure, depression, abuse by social media. They're also making career choices without fully understanding the complexities. So the platform is open for all, as we believe that knowledge should be equally accessible, and it is our duty to guide the future generation. So while we celebrate kindness, we really need to see what you need to do to make a difference. The wonderful thing is that it's so incredibly easy to be kind. This week, as we celebrate World Kindness Day, let's be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people. And it gives me great pleasure that we have with us today Richard Pilla from the USA, who's woken up really early in the morning for this session to speak to all of us. Richard Pilla is the founder of the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation. With over 1 million followers around the world, he continues to build a volunteer nonprofit that already has 20,000 volunteers in 215 nations and territories. The primary goal of the foundation is to unite people around the world to fight bias and hate through interactive educational and humanitarian programs. The Global Goodwill Ambassadors are recognized as a partner with the United Nations Sustainable Goals Action Campaign. It brings uplifting messages of hope and laughter to promote goodwill to all. Please join me in welcoming Richard Pilla for a wonderful session today on inspiration and kindness.
Thank you so much, Parveen. Very kind.
So, Richard, as we start, and a lot of people are watching live, we'd really like to know from you, what is the inspiration behind the Global Goodwill Ambassadors, and how do you think you've realized human kindness, or it has changed you?
Well, the inspiration started quite innocently. It was, I guess now almost 9 years ago. I was on the LinkedIn forum, and at the time I was working in the corporate world, and didn't really need to use LinkedIn to do what then was the more traditional model of LinkedIn, which was looking for work. So I figured that the best thing that I could get out of it was to learn things from other people, and always been kind of a person who likes to meet people. I'm certainly not introverted and shy in that regard, you know. So I just started speaking to people and asking them about them, and asking them questions that I had about their countries and their cultures, and anybody who was willing to share that with me, you know, I started to really learn a lot about the people themselves in those nations. And what I was really surprised about was, even though I shouldn't have been, I was surprised to learn that there's so much commonality amongst people. And if you just learn from watching media and watching things on the news, that you kind of get a more government perspective of nations rather than a people perspective. And in a certain instance back then, if you think about the the innocent way that the Global Goodwill Ambassadors came about was there was no intention to have anything. I was speaking to a person from a country, and when she was, I believe, a biochemist, the woman was, and she told me about what she did on the weekends, and she said that she started going to an orphanage and helping out with orphanage with the children there. And I said, well, you do that every weekend? She says, well, I wasn't intending to, but once I started, I couldn't not go back. It was like the children were drawing me back. And I started thinking about that later on in the evening and thought, oh my goodness, I had such a perspective that I had gotten of a country that I kind of never imagined in that country. If you just looked at what the media was showing us, I couldn't imagine that there's people doing kindness. And I thought I was embarrassed for the way I was thinking myself. So I wanted to share that in some way. And the next day I put a little picture of her on that I did graphically, and I put the country she was from, and I put, I had a lovely conversation with, and I put her name, and I said, and the kinds of things that she's doing are the kinds of things that a lot of people should do. In my mind, she's a LinkedIn Global Goodwill Ambassador because I found her here, where she's here on LinkedIn. So I just put that out there. And I had built a pretty big network because I was in the Silicon Valley in San Francisco at the start of LinkedIn. So I had a good number of followers for back then. And usually I would find that throughout the day, I would get 40 or 50 messages sent to me. And by the end of the night, I had like 500 messages, and all of the messages were about the same thing. Thank you for doing what you did and highlighting this person. People need to hear that, that for our country. And it really dawned on me then that was important to do. And within those messages were also people from other countries who said, so-and-so here in our country, or so-and-so here in my city is doing this, and so-and-so is doing that. And I started looking them up, and I started communicating with them. And I just little at a time was making these little images, which wasn't difficult for me. I was kind of in a world of marketing and could do things like that. And before long, and I still kept getting more messages too and everything. And I felt like, hey, I'm doing something good here with this platform. I'm sharing goodness and kindness and letting people know things that I'm finding out that I didn't know. And I was already, this is not that many years ago. So it's not, I'm not a spring chicken, to get. So if I hadn't learned that through my life, I thought a lot of other people don't know this, and it's really important in the world to do that. Finally, after I had like 20 or 30 people, I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm calling them LinkedIn Global Goodwill Ambassadors, and I don't have permission from LinkedIn. They never said anything, but I thought, let me just drop the LinkedIn part and just call them Global Goodwill Ambassadors. And that's what I started to do. And from there, it just kind of mushroomed on. It just like more and more people. And it became something. I was traveling every week for my job. So I spent an entire week in a different city and was in hotels. So in the evening, after I finished work, this is what I was doing, was doing this kind of thing, because I really felt like I was doing something to contribute back by sharing the goodness of others. That has, here I am 8 years forward. Now I am not an I anymore. We are we with great people. We have a president, we have a global board, we have what I call unofficially chapters in every country. Um, large chapters in 350, 375 global Goodwill ambassadors, and they function independently, but also in unity with us. And the sole purpose was to build human bridges, was to we put a framework together in order to become a global Goodwill ambassador now, and for a long time. We were not giving people a title. We were taking people that were already doing good works and rewarding them in a way that highlighted the good works that they do. And a lot of people have gotten confused because people kind of like to have titles and be called something. So they would say, "Oh, can I be a global Goodwill ambassador?" And I mean, basically, are you? Are you? And show us how. So there were criteria built. You had to have volunteer work. You had to explain the volunteer work. You had to sign a code of ethics that says that whatever you do with that label of global Goodwill ambassadors has to have no bias, no hate, and no political, and that you won't solicit from each other. So I didn't want to put a bunch of people together that were doing good causes and asking each other to help support their causes, because they were all doing good things. So that you now know the genesis of where we are. And a year ago, we became a 501c3 nonprofit charity. And even that in itself was done somewhat reluctantly, in that we're not really about money. That's not the purpose of our organization. We did that because, one, the major organizations like the UN or anybody else, they wouldn't partner when we wanted to be part of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is about where we got a lot of the programs and initiatives that we're doing, is following those goals. And so we went ahead and did that to substantiate that we were a real organization and with a structure and such. And then it also helped that in a lot of our chapters, people have their own NGOs and they're working to do things. And now the people that I was working with, we already have a relationship with, so we know who they are. So we've known them for 7 and 8 years. In some cases we've met, and in many cases we've chatted for hours on Zoom calls, and that's the way we conducted business, the way that the COVID world is conducting business. So our organization is not, even though it has a huge appearance because I have a lot of followers and stuff, what we really concentrate on is initiatives that are in the communities of people that are based on root causes, which is a big difference. That it's not like delivering food in bulk like a lot of people do to governments to distribute and things. We bypass any governments. We have people we already trust, so we can trust and that they will take any contributions that we send to them and do the things that they're going to do. So that gives you the basic shell of an organization right now that is more about a lot of other great people than myself, who just happened to start it one day by I'm not going to say a mistake. It was just a random thing that occurred, and that was the genesis of it.
That's wonderful to hear about the work that you do. But given how goodwill is and kindness is, it takes an effort every day. So how do you really stay positive every single day?
Well, one of the things that I do, which is I try to live a life of kindness and do things. A lot of times it's very, very simple things, but quite often, if I'm pulling through and buying a cup of coffee, I pay for the car behind me. I do that. Well, I do that more often than I probably should financially, but I do it. And I try to pay attention because I realize that there's the opportunity for kindness. People say, well, what can I do? Well, it's all around us. It's everywhere. There's always people in need. We as humans have, in our busy lives, have stopped looking. We go about our task of getting up and heading to the task that we're there. And during that commute, whether it be a walk, whether it be a drive, whether it be a train, during that commute, what we're missing around us are a lot of people that may not be in the best state, of mind, because there's a lot of burdens in the world. And oftentimes, the littlest kindness, even if you have no intention of how it'll make people feel, will actually have a result that is much greater than you might believe. So the way I share it universally now is I do something that I've actually taken a lot of flack for. Social media can be mean. People say to me, well, why do you post? Why don't you post about your organization more? Why do you post about, using puppies and using nature and things? And I do that, one, so that I can share an example of a feeling that represents the organization, goodness that you can do. And I use nature because I believe nature is the perfect textbook for doing things that are good and kind. Nature is kind, and I know nature brings us storms, and nature brings us catastrophes that occur. Nature is a perfect mirror of life, and it's not the storm, it's how we survive the storm.
That's true. That's wonderful. So when you're doing so many things and there are so many positive messages that you put out in social media, uh, what is it that you enjoy the most about the work you do?
Well, I definitely, I'm like anybody else. I said nature is perfect. Well, if you know that an animal enjoys a good scratch behind the ear, when he's been a good doggy, when I get, I guess no one will ever know the joy that I get from the messages that come to me, thanking me for people that say they wake up and first thing in the morning, they look at my messages for something inspiring, that, for an inspirational message, and for thanking me for doing that. So it sounds like, no, let me admit it. I feel very good when I do that. It's not, I don't take it as being selfish in that I look for that. I never started anything to look for that reinforcement. What I'm getting a charge out of is the fact that I can help people. So maybe, everybody has gifts, and like if this is the way that I can use the gifts that have been given to me, then and I make people feel good and happy with a message that is a little video that I found, and I put the words of how it made me feel, and other people actually have the similar feelings when they see things, positive things in life, life lessons, things that I've learned that come from, they're my words on the thing. So yes, I may take a little clip of a video that I've received, and I cut it down to a little portion, because during that portion I felt emotion. I felt the emotion of what was going on. um, a mother helping a baby. It may not be a human mother, but nonetheless, it's that way. I never worry about having to worry about any bias or anything that, because as I said, social media has gotten to be a difficult world. So using nature and things in nature is something that I do, and also inspirational messages that I see about humans overcoming adversity, um, the love between that people share that's between them that they may not even realize how impactful it is. And maybe it's not impactful to other people, but it's impactful to me, and I share that emotion.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember reading one of your posts, and for those of you who haven't seen Richard's posts on LinkedIn, please do check it out. I personally see it every morning because it's such a lovely way to start your day by seeing something positive. There is a beautiful post even about a woman taking care of orphaned elephants till they grow up. It's so beautiful. And I think yesterday or this morning I saw one about a very old lady, and because she used to be a ballerina and somebody is playing for her the Swan Lake music, she remembers the whole choreography, and she is back into the mood with her hand gestures. Of course, she cannot move from the wheelchair. Believe me, when you see things like that, it is so inspirational. But with all of that, Richard, which is there that you do in the positivity and so many things you have seen daily in your life over all these years, what is it about the world that probably makes you angry or disappoints you?
Um, Definitely in today's day and time, it's the divisiveness that occurs, um, and social media now is the platform where people can see it most, but it's also on mainstream news. It seems like there's people that are so stubborn about their point of view that they have forgotten that we are all the same. I did a post recently that showed the human cell that exists in everybody, and it was a new scientific method they did to show the human cell, and it's the core that's within all of us. And because of this method that used a lot of different formulas, all the bright colors and all the intricacies of the cell were there that looked like a beautiful piece of work. Guess what? That's in all of us. That's what we are. That's the beauty in all of us, and um, we learning to be tolerant of each other, learning to accept somebody's point of view has somehow run into roadblocks because people believe that they want to be tolerant about everything, but they don't want to be tolerant about somebody else's opinion. And each of us has opinions, and you don't have to agree with the way everybody is, but you also don't have to be mean and mean spirited about those opinions. Maybe there's something you can learn if you would drop that wall of the way you feel. And I I think that's something. If I look at like a root thing that is everybody could learn from, would be to for acceptance and tolerance. And there's a lot of traditions that are carried out through the ages, and a lot of our traditions are wrong. It doesn't mean that you have to stop having that tradition because it's been around forever and ever and ever. It means that we have definitely evolved as people, as humans. We have evolved. If we don't continue to evolve mentally and emotionally, then what we're doing is we're regressing in that way. So yes, the evolutionary process took many millions of years to evolve, and along that way, changes were made, and people developed skills, and then they learned to live together, and they had inventions, and those inventions changed their lives. That process of growth has continued throughout the ages. There probably were, along that time, there were times that things stalled. And I believe right now that we are in a stalled period of, we're right on the brink. I feel it I can almost feel it. You have to live enough years to actually live it. And fortunately or unfortunately, I have. Over 6 decades, I have seen changes, some good, some bad. But the development, if our development moves forward to interconnect people to where we stop looking at color and culture and traditions of the past, I believe we'll all be better for it. And if you disagree with me, respect that that's a belief of mine. If you agree with me, say, I feel that same way too. That's it. It's not, oh, I'll never watch him, or I'll never listen to him, or I don't like what he had to say, so I'm just never going to. That's the one thing that I think is hurting us today, is that we have a lot of that.
That's true. That's true. And I think you put it really beautifully well. I also want to introduce Chandni Sawlani, who is the co-moderator today. Chandni, you want to go ahead and ask the question?
Yes. I think first thing I'd like to say is I completely feel that too. But yeah, respect all those who don't, the way you feel about the current times. I think my question really was, like everything you've said is so close to my heart, and compassion, human connection, and kindness is a cause that I personally work on. But what I found is, how do you sustain that? Building this kindness and compassion muscle, building a habit of practicing kindness every single day. Even though we all know it feels good, sometimes we don't do it. How do you build it into your life? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, and thank you, Shandi. It's a great question. I've found a way to do it in my way. I've been fortunate to now to build a huge platform, a network that has I think I just went over 1.2 million followers. I have a platform to deliver a message. It doesn't really matter. That's great that I have that, but each of us has a group of people that they communicate with, a group of people that they see throughout the course of the day. You are each examples that can be led in the way that you walk into an office, enter into a Zoom call, the way that you light up a room and light up feelings in other people is a kindness, and it reflects beautifully. You started this conversation off yourself by saying, I feel that same belief. I live my life with that compassion and do that. There are people that are or will watch this who that will resonate with. You've just done the kindness already without having to even having to leave things. And then I often say that people just need to pay attention. I can guarantee you, there in your city, you only have to walk a couple blocks in your city to see something kind you could do for people, and that exists everywhere. Do it. Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm going to do something kind today, and if you see that and do that, you will really change inside. You will glow inside.
I can't tell you how much this is resonating, but my other question is, you've managed to build this platform that engages, I think, over 20,000 people. So I'm sure it took a lot of mindful design to build for so much unity among so many people from so many diverse places, and also effectiveness in action. How did you go about that?
Well, that's a great question, and that comes from building an organization the same way we built a business. We have a president right now in our organization, Lisa Jones, and she is the president and handles all the operations and does some amazing things and gives time throughout every single day. She builds into the website. She does our administrative paperwork. She builds a global board that she has. I mean, where I've moved out of doing things that I did by myself when we were very young and small as an organization, now there's other people, and the other people have come to us because they want to be part of it. We built something that people want to see. Now we're putting out an e-magazine, and it'll eventually be it'll eventually be also a magazine that you can subscribe to. We've stayed within a lane that I wanted in a organization, and that is I didn't want any corruption. I don't want money to be the guide. We don't. The difference between us and a major organization is we've been able to build a coalition of people all around the world, and we don't own one building. We don't have any salaries. We don't have, the only expenses that ever occur are the administrative expenses that a bank has charged us, because we don't have a staff. Nobody is paid any money. There's no salaries involved. So I wanted to do this to be the opposite of what I read about. Unfortunately, a lot of huge organizations, there's a need for them. They do a good job. But in order to sustain the infrastructure and overhead, those organizations have to pay for buildings. In cases of the biggest organizations, 50,000 employees around the world, travel expenses for them to go where they need to go, and on and on and on. When you take a unit of currency, I'll use the dollar since it's one I'm familiar with. Take the dollar bill and you donate it to an organization that has overhead like that. Maybe after you've paid for each of the overhead, a little coin is left. We have no expenses. So you take the dollar bill, and unless the bank takes out their little portion of what it goes through, or in order to keep it recorded for administrative purposes. So a lot of that dollar bill goes to where we need it to go to. And if it's in the case of the things that we do, we realized that, I'll give an example of the kind of initiatives. An orphanage in Sierra Leone has 28 young girls in there. That's what they sustain. $150 of US pays for 3 meals a day for 28 girls for an entire month. It's 26 cents a meal. That's $150. Because we don't take anything from it, if we get that and give it to them, that's what you could do. People, you want an act of kindness? Look at some of the things we do. You don't have to worry about guardianship. We're gonna put it in in our magazines, we're going to show you pictures, you know, and letters from the people. They're the kinds of things that we do. And that's the kind of things that people feed on, that they can be part of. So yes, I encourage people to look at the initiatives we're doing. They all come from those 20,000 volunteers that we've gotten to know over the years, who we trust, because we know that when we send them money, it's going to somebody who we know, who is part of it, who is proud to do the things that they're doing, so that it can be encourage other people to do things. Our root cause initiative is called My Body is My Body. Lovely program created by one of our early members, Chrissy Sykes, who is it is an absolute free program. It is free. It is a child abuse prevention program that is now in 50 countries, in 20, I think it's just the 21st language. It just got done in Hindu. It's and it can be shown by teachers in a classroom. We're doing this because it's our root cause, because child abuse is horrible. It is rampant. 6 out of 10 children in the world have suffered a form of child abuse. That is uncalled for. It is a scourge. And when I tell people that statistic, I can actually now get to see in people's eyes that they think, you know, in my life, I probably may have even suffered this. Some people have repressed it and done it, but it's something we need to knock out. So what do? We teach young children that about their body image. We say, it is your temple. It is my body. Nobody has the right to touch me. And it tells them how to say no, and it tells them who to report it to, and it teaches them very important lessons. We do that for free. It doesn't cost anything. If you're a teacher, take an hour and download the program. Take a course on how to teach that program. We need to protect the children. They are the future. We need to do these things. Now, do we have an initiative? Yes, I asked Chrissy, what else could we do? I said, we asked Chrissy. I think Lisa was more involved in that. What else can we do? Well, since we teach the children, it'd be nice to have workbooks that they carry home and can share with the parents and the people in it, because quite often child abuse occurs. May not always be from the parents, but it may be from people that are in contact with the children, that there's something wrong with them. You know, I'm being kind here. But you know, they believe they could take advantage of children, and it happens in every single socioeconomic thing. It doesn't matter. You say, oh, that only happens in poor. No, it doesn't. That happens everywhere. So these workbooks then, if the children and the parents go through these little workbooks, they get to tell them, and they get to build up some kind of confidence with their parents that if anybody ever does that in that family, that they will tell them. And then teachers get. So if you're hearing a lot of passion, that is why that's our core initiative and will always be. So that's, and I said earlier that we're looking at root causes when we do things. We know it's nice to feed the homeless, but what can we do with the homeless community that can maybe lift them up? So we like to work with shelters that have programs that actually can look for jobs for these people. With pets and animals, you know, we work with adoption agencies that have no euthanasia policy. So they're not going to keep the animal unless they get adopted and then put them to sleep. All the things that we are trying to do are to address root causes. And we'll be able to do that way beyond me, because that's why we have such great people. And, you know, we're doing young leadership programs. I'm probably answering your question way too long. I'm sorry. I have so much passion about what we do, and I feel like I'm always running against my own clock age. So I'm getting it out there to you. Be a part of it. You don't need to be formally a part of it if you don't want. Live a life like that. Live a life that when you get to be towards the end of your lifetime, you have a legacy, and your legacy will never be what you did for work for a living. It will always be what you've done for the future of the world. And yes, sounds crazy, sounds too big, but that is what a legacy is.
Absolutely, Richard. I think you put it so well. In fact, Chrissy is going to be taking a session in the first week of December with us on My Body is My Body. I did reach out to her and she agreed. So
Wonderful. You will meet, in my opinion, a saint. She is the stuff that she has produced and the time that she has put in it. I have no idea the number, but I would guarantee you it's in the millions of potential lives she has saved. And when I say potential lives, I mean it. Children that are victim of child abuse end up growing up in a world that isn't the same as somebody who hasn't suffered that. They are untrusting. They have emotional issues, dealing with things and comprehending things, because during their most formidable years of development, it's been interrupted by people who have taken advantage of their innocence. So I'm so glad that Chrissy is going to be on, and I highly encourage people who are viewing this to watch when she is on and listen to the amazing things that she has done.
Sure, definitely. In fact, one of our viewers, Hannah, you have a question?
Hi, my question is, if you could solve one problem in the world, what would it be?
Thank you, Hannah. It's a great question. I kind of feel in some regards I've already answered that, in that I believe that acutely that child abuse is one that I'd like to see eradicated, or at least changed from a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 is not good. It is not only not good, it is horrible. I do believe that that's the kind of thing that we can set a goal, and that's the kind of problem in the world that we can set a goal and we can say, if we extrapolate the population and we say, what if after running this program for 15, 20 years, we knock it from 6 out of 10 in the world, because that's out of world, and we make it 4 out of 10. That number of lives that are saved are so many, and it also stops generational abuse for children. Children, youth, young people, they need to see goodness so that they can live a life that changes humanity a little at a time. So I'm going to always default to programs where we're helping children to survive things that they shouldn't go through, and to actually be able to contribute back into the world.
My next question is, you support many humanitarian causes. Can you tell us about some of your missions and what changes have been caused?
Yes. Well, you've heard about the orphanages that we support. We also support a lot of programs for street children, children that are homeless and living on the streets. Programs, again, the root cause programs. We're trying to get them off the street into places that can help not only feed them, but shelter them and give them education. Most of our causes are for education. In Nigeria, where we are helping we're helping build for schools that have no clean water sanitation stations that are permanent part of their school, which is the only clean water in the school. And we're doing that so that even if young people don't have running water at home, they're able to keep their hygiene up. We have programs that run for all the SDGs. Sustainable Development Goals. But all of these programs that we have are for things that we see every day, and how can we help the homeless population? Well, yes, we can deliver them food. Better yet, can we deliver them food and welcome them into a shelter? And when they go to that shelter, can they have counseling, and can they be shown ways that maybe they can lead a more productive life and get off the street? So they're the kind of programs that you'll see. And yes, we have a lot of initiatives, because our people are all passionate. When I say our people, our volunteers are all passionate about helping their communities in their different countries. And we have people in every country. So our programs will always come to us, and then our board decides which ones address a root cause and which one we can try to collect funds for that might be needed in order to make those happen.
Thank you so much for that. We have another question. Aditya, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, my question is, do you have any posts relating to lessons to be learned from animals or care for animals? Why is this cause so close to your heart? And what do you think animals teach us?
Well, another very good question. And I view, when I use animals, I do this because I believe that if we are looking for and seeking answers, that nature in itself provides us many answers. This is not that I'm a great theologian. It's the reason that Walden walked around the pond and said the same thing to himself, and that many people over the years have realized that our greatest teacher is nature itself. So the reason that I use animals is because it's so easy when I'm looking through videos that are out there in the world that I can get a hold of. The things that I see in nature and animals, the way animals treat themselves that are even not of the own species. You know, why is a chimpanzee helping another species out by feeding them, feeding a turtle? You know, why is a bird feeding fish out of his mouth? You know, I mean, the way nature doesn't have nearly as much hostility and anger. It's part of the, what I know as and we all should know of, the inalienable rights of people, and the inalienable which came from the beginning. You know, the beginning of the earth was started with it wasn't started with bias, it wasn't started with hate, it wasn't started with caste, it wasn't started with way to look at people. You know, it has only been disrupted by the way that people have interpreted and taught down through the ages. And in all honesty, the purity of nature is much better than the purity of man in its base form. And maybe if we got closer to nature, we would all be the better for it.
Yeah, I have another question. What is your proudest accomplishment?
Um, well, one thing I will tell you is that I worked a long time in the corporate world, and during the time that I was working in the corporate world, I, like everybody else, thought that I was doing a good job when I had accomplished the goals and tasks that I did for work that day. Since I left that a few years ago and concentrated just on the foundation and global goodwill ambassadors, that has become an eye-opening thing to me, that I thought, if only I had started by doing something that I truly loved, that that helped not only feed a family, but actually helped my soul inside, that helped other people. Um, I hope the legacy that I'm looking for, my greatest accomplishment, is hopefully to leave behind a message, a memory of something that touches people and makes them lead a better life. If if that occurs, then I can't believe that there's anything better that I could do or contribute. So it doesn't have to be part of. It doesn't have to be a name on a building. It doesn't have to be a prize. It doesn't have to be something that I received. Um, as far as I get I get a lot of certificates of thanks and things. It doesn't have to be that. What it needs to be is have a positive effect on somebody else who will carry on and continue to do good things because they get the same feeling that I get when I do that.
Thank you so much, Richard. I'd actually like to ask the rest of the audience, the participants now, if they have any questions that they'd like to ask or speak to Richard. You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask directly. No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead because I do have a question. We're going through this COVID situation, Richard, across different regions now, and you've been seeing how people have been responding. There's so much of a humanitarian side that is there between people. What is your experience based on what you do on how you're seeing COVID having changed the world?
Well, COVID has been the most powerful um, challenge for the world in my lifetime, and my lifetime goes back to beginning when I was born in 1956, so the days of polio and measles and mumps and other things. Um, this is a big challenge for the world, and the bigger the challenge, um, when we have the ability to overcome it, and that is coming. Um, that will actually do a lot for humanity itself. So there has to be a balance um, of us growing technologically and medically. Um, COVID has given a lot of people a lot of time to be introspective about the things that they're doing in life, their careers. Um, it has also given people a lot of challenges to overcome. Um, if we don't, the hard thing about challenges is, and the good part of challenges is if we don't overcome burdens, it's hard for us to grow. If we live through life without negative things happening, then we'll only grow to the level as people that we grow. So this will be for many people in this generation of time and that's all people of all ages, to have lived through this will be stories that will be passed down through generations. The way people say today, you know, my great grandfather was in World War I. People will be saying years forward that my great, I don't know, aunt Parveen was around during the time of COVID, and those kind of things will be said. Yet people don't look forward and even understand that now. They don't realize that people will look back and say that yes, it has been a very, very difficult thing for all people, and I'm very proud of the world for how they're handling it. You know, there is no perfection. We don't know. There's still so much we don't know about COVID and the way it's mutated, and you know, it's an awful virus, and the fact that there's something very good on the horizon in a vaccine will actually be a day to celebrate more than people believe.
True. That's so true. There's a question about how do you stay positive in a worst kind of situation? And if I can add to that, how does one become a global goodwill ambassador?
Okay, I'll answer the first. You know, staying positive is something that it needs to be part of somebody's day. It is not. You can't just on your own say, I'm going to stay positive, particularly when we're in a time of so much uncertainty and things. So you actually, that comes to you taking some introspective time and to realize what it is that makes you feel good. For some people, that's prayer. For some people, that's meditation. For some people, that's yoga. For some people, it's knowing that today I'm going to do something good. It may be hold the door for somebody who's old, elderly when I go through. It may be to buy a cup of coffee for somebody, or to put some coins in a for the hummus. It's something, and to understand that will have a more positive effect than the things that we give. So that's the first question. As far as becoming a global goodwill ambassador, we have we grew really fast. We have chapters in all over the world. Some of the chapters are large, like in Kenya, that have 350, 375 members. Nigeria, the same way. There's a chapter president. There's directors. They meet on their own. They were meeting in person. Now they do Zoom meetings. They run their own, like an own little chapter in an organization. For if somebody wants to become a global goodwill ambassador, we've actually modified our things. You have to have volunteer or charitable work, and you have to have that listed somewhere. We use LinkedIn because we know that the probability of somebody putting something on their profile on LinkedIn has a lot more basis than it may be on other social media. And we just know it was built professionally, and if you're going to put that you do something and your peers see it, you're held accountable to that. So we know that that information. So we'd like people to show us, and there's places to go on a website where you can go and you can inquire about these things. We don't care about if I took every member that wanted to be a global goodwill ambassador, I would have hundreds of thousands of members. I get people every day that say it. In a base forum, I'm looking for people with a good heart. What have you done? What have you done with your life to deserve to be called a Goodwill ambassador, you know? And if it's global Goodwill ambassador, which is what the thing is, what have you done that other people from other countries would look at and say, wow, I want to be that too. I want to do that too. I want to help humanity. So we have taken away the easiness of rules and said, you know, if you want to be, there's a path, and that path may be that you show us what you're doing. And then every single person that is a global Goodwill ambassador signs a code of ethics. They read the code of ethics, they have to read it. As I said, no bias, no hate, no political speech, no solicitation of members, of their own members in the thing. Now they can, if they have charities, they can put out there on open posts, but we have cause groups that people don't even know about. We have on WhatsApp cause groups for different countries, for different regions. We have a lot of groups, cause groups for teachers, teachers cause groups. We have different professions and different countries and the things. And the chain and web of the 20,000 members plus volunteers is going on all the time. A teacher in a certain part of the world that I live in, who may not be as good in STEM, and that teacher calling somebody in a part of the world that you live in and saying, hey, I teach third grade. What's the best way to teach one of these STEM programs to third graders? Here's the curriculum that we've been given. And it's, I don't know. It's not really resonating. What do you do in your country? Your country's pretty good at these things. Those kind of, if we didn't have this web of people who could communicate, these human bridges that were formed, if we didn't have that, who would they reach out to? They're not going to go to their own principals because, you know, I call it the corporate world. The corporate world exists even in education and everything else. You know, you don't have a position as a teacher and say, well, what's the best way for me to teach? They're going to say, well, maybe if you don't know the answer to that, maybe you shouldn't be a teacher. And it's cold, it's cruel. But you can ask people that are friends that you've developed friends with, because we've built this human connection of bridges that exist. And that's one of the nicest parts of what we do. You know, like I said, you're going to talk to other charities who are going to come on and they're going to say, oh, we're looking to raise funds for this and that and everything like that. You know what, if we don't ever do anything that raise funds would be fine for me. You know, like we don't have some great infrastructure to do it. If we can help people by doing projects, at least we know that the majority of money goes directly to them and it's not going into some corrupt politician's hands, because we don't deal with governments. So easy thing, go to our website, Global Goodwill Ambassadors, www.globalgoodwillambassadors.org. Go to our website, read over how to become part of the family. Reach out to the people it tells you to reach out to. They're all good people. You know, Lisa Jones, unbelievable, marvelous person who has dedicated tons of time. You mentioned Chrissy, she's VP of Child Advocacy for us. Razi Hamid Syed, who's been with us from the beginning, has an understanding of the Middle East because he's lived in every country in the Middle East, and his father built a school in one of the countries in the Middle East, and he grew up with that. He now lives in the U.S. and he helps us out in the Middle East. We have our country chairs in every country that are active and participant. In some of the countries, it's hard to get people together. The U.S. is one, India is one, because India isn't. The difference between northern India and southern India and the different factions, you know, it all exists. So you have to get people to be unified gets harder often in bigger countries than it does in little countries. But it doesn't matter if you can have a group of people that want to get together and be part of it. At least we offer a structure. We offer a way for you to do it. And there's no, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to be part of of that structure if you want to do it. So we're looking to see people that rise to the top for doing things, not to get a title. And a lot of cultures and a lot of countries, unfortunately, are built on credentials, and credentials being more important than what's inside of people. So, but I hope that answers. Plenty of ways to reach out to our organization to be part of and to do something. And even if you weren't part of it, there's things that you can do. You want to do a random act of kindness, you know, we have a backpack drive going on now that we worked out with another organization. We work with other organizations because they're friends. We're not competitors, we're friends. They're doing good things. You can get children who have never had, you know, who are going back to school, who don't have the money for a backpack. They get a backpack, a mask, 2 notebooks, pens, pencils, everything that they need, a ruler, a calculator, all together, including that mask that is very important in going back during these times. And it cost $5 US to get a child that. Hey, do something nice, send $5. You're making the child that gets that, you have no idea what you're doing for them. They're the kind of things that we like to do, projects like that have an immediate effect, and we know that it's going to people with need.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. In fact, during this COVID situation, I remember just around a month back reaching out to my entire lawyer community and telling them that as lawyers, we love our stationery, but the ones who need it most are the children in the school. And
Yes.
It was amazing because I had boxes and boxes of stationery flowing into my house, which I arranged it into packets for distribution for school children.
That's so wonderful.
See the joy on their face because they've got, we asked for color pencils, which is a packet of 12 shades, and I got packets which were sent in 55 and 100 shades. So you can imagine, you know, the child's face when they got such a beautiful kit for them for stationery.
Oh yes, and you know, like people will ask you, like some people have asked me, you know, like, well, you know, what was the greatest joy? And you almost go beyond. You say, I was able to get pencils and pens and stuff like that, but the words that stick with you are when I saw the joy on the children's face. That's the kind of thing that really makes you understand what you're doing. It's hard for people who have lived with a little bit of privilege in their life, and even the people don't believe that they have in comparison to other places, to realize what a packet of pencils, you know, or the fact that I won't have to go to school without a backpack when everybody else has a backpack. I can be included. What that does for somebody and their future life. These are the little things that I believe all of us can be part of, not just things that I'm doing with my thing. This is what you just shared with me is absolutely beautiful. And that's a lesson for it. Anybody can do that.
Absolutely. Ahana?
Sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself. I just wanted to say thank you for talking to us today. Your videos, messages are really inspiring to watch and to listen to. I personally really enjoyed your videos and the ones on dogs. Your talking here today has been really inspiring. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome, and Hannah, and I believe that you can do some great things in the world. You know, take these little things that you've heard today, not just from me but from Parveen, and make your own path, make your own messages in life, touch your own people. They're there, and they need the help. So. you have a long life ahead of you, make an impact in the most meaningful ways. And I hope that you have picked up a few little nuggets on ways that you can do that and feel inspired to do that. So thank you for what you've given back to me. Thank you, Hannah.
I just wanted to jump in to say something quick. A few friends and I have been trying to do something similar through a platform called the Goodwill Tribe. And I think today's session has just really, really given me fresh perspective on how we can open ourselves up to so much more through it. So thank you so much, really. And yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. And unlike other organizations, Global Goodwill Ambassadors works with people who are doing things like you're doing. We work alongside, not to overtake or overshadow you, but because it's part of who we are and what we do, which is why we actually work primarily with other NGOs. We don't have the people that are all united under, we're not going to go out this weekend and build a house with 100 people. We may not have 100 people in one community to do that. So what we do is we look at other people who talk to us and feel like they follow the same guidelines that we feel are good and keep you out of trouble. And trouble we call is getting too involved with governmental agencies and people that can ruin the reputation of your thing. Keeping it uniform with structure and following that. So I wish you a lot of success with yours. If you ever want to work together or can gain something, please reach out to Lisa Jones. And if you forget her name, it's on. We actually have on our website. We have places where you can download a PDF and say, I'd like to integrate with an initiative to do together. And so I wish you the best with it, and thank you for the compliment earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. It's been such a wonderful session. I don't know where the over 1 hour has really passed. I thank you all for watching, and there'll be more sessions from Amwizer and us, and wishing everybody a happy Diwali. Thank you so much, Richard.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you all, and thank you for putting this together, Parveen, and thank you to everybody who asked questions, and hopefully I gave an answer that helped people.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye now.